So when we realized that many organizations were offering professional development opportunities and events, but the barrier for us was childcare, we came up with our own events that offered parallel children's activities.
I'm very appreciative to have as my guest today Khristine Cariño. Khristine is the founder of Empower.Mom, champion for moms returning to work, community advocate and organizer, president and board member of the Society for Canadian Women in Science and Technology, dentist and ambassador for women in STEM at Immigrant Networks. Khristine was recently featured in Canadian Immigrant as one of 4 Immigrant Women of Inspiration for pushing boundaries in science and technology. Our conversation today focuses on Khristine's work and advocacy for moms who are returning back to paid work, and we also talk about her work regarding women in STEM. Welcome to the show, Khristine.
Thanks, Karen, for inviting me. I'm so excited and just such a pleasure to finally be on your podcast.
Thank you. Yes, it's so nice to have you here. And now I would love for our listeners to learn a little bit more. Where are you calling in from? And do you have a particular food or site in your area of the world?
Yes, I'm joining everyone from Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. From my living room, from my home, I see the beautiful scenic mountains of the North Shore. And we can see at one of the mountains actually has a ski resort. A lot of snow there during winter, Grouse Mountain. Yeah, and because Vancouver is very multicultural, there's a lot of food that we go for. Number one is sushi from Japanese restaurants. We have our current favorite though right now are Indian, Afghani, South Asian, and Turkish cuisine. But of course, because I come from the Philippines, I would also say Filipino food is great around here.
Thank you so much. That sounds so delicious. So now, Khristine, you are the founder of Empower.Mom and a champion for moms returning to paid work. Could you share with our listeners more details and why you founded it?
Empower.Mom was an idea that was brought about by realizing that many women who have children in Canada, and especially in my local neighborhood, were actually having difficulty finding jobs, much more establishing careers after taking time raising their children. And I personally experienced that not only once, but twice. And I also found out that I was not the only person who had multiple attempts at relaunching careers. So when I realized at a employment program at YWCA that many professionals in my cohort were mothers going back to work, I thought, okay, and these women, including me, have lost self-confidence, have de-skilled, lost those skills that we had prior to staying home full-time. I thought, okay, what can be done? And so we got together, we brainstormed and came up with little solutions that would help our little group move forward, and Empower.Mom was born. So one simple solution was actually finding events, professional development events that were children-friendly, meaning to say, and there were no events that we could find, like if you're a mother trying to get out, and number one issue would still be childcare, because yes, the husbands are there, but you know how patriarchal many systems are still, childcare is still the mother's responsibility. So when we realized that many organizations were offering professional development opportunities and events, but the barrier for us was childcare, we came up with our own events that offered parallel children's activities. And it was actually very interesting because our first event was on discovering the careers in AVR and VR. Augmented virtual reality and virtual reality, yes, because at that time, around 2017, AVR and VR was coming into the consciousness of many people in Vancouver tech industry, especially those who were looking for work. And the most interesting thing during that event that we, a child-friendly event that we organized, is the husbands came, the grandparents came. And we thought, okay, great. We are not just then bringing this women the awareness to the issues that these women faced, but creating a supportive network through their families, by bringing in their families as well. Because our small group, of course, had children. So in around 2018 and 2019, we went on hiatus. Two of the co-founders had children. Now all of us have total 3. But in this year, 2022, we are relaunching and becoming more intentional with what our programming would look like. But basically, our mission is to build a thriving community of a network of support for mothers returning to work.
That's just wonderful. And it's, I feel it is so critical for anybody who is going back to paid work or trying to have a support network. Because often I feel, there is a loneliness that somebody might think, well, maybe I'm the only person. And having a support system, what you just described with Empower.Mom, I think is excellent. So super appreciative to hear that. And, one of the things you just mentioned is about the skills. Sometimes I feel, and it might be also because of the way society describes, somebody who might be a stay-at-home mom, a stay-at-home parent or caregiver, that it is perceived to be a break. But in reality, I strongly believe there are so many transferable skills for business, soft skills that can be learned. So I'd love to hear, could you describe maybe some of the skills you have learned during that period of time?
I totally agree, Karen. Staying home as a full-time mom is not really a break. In fact, it's a lot of work. And yes, we gain more skills as well. For me, it was about refining my people skills. Previously, when I was just a working professional, no home responsibilities, no childcare, not being a mother, I was very goal-oriented, deliverable-oriented. Okay, this is the product that we have to deliver. This is the service. Then we push through the goal. But having kids sort of refined my people skills. Now I am more focused on ensuring having safe spaces for the people I work with, and focusing on their strengths, being more encouraging, being more more mentoring than being the boss. Do this, do that, do this. Because as you know, in the family with kids, I learned it doesn't work that way. We learn to be more diplomatic. We learned to emphasize the good, the strengths, so that we want our children to grow, be able to fulfill their potential. And if we cut them down with criticism, then they don't, right? So it's the same. It's the same way at the workplace. The more encouraging we are, the more we focus on strength, the more we build people to be leaders, to be the best that they can. The organization will thrive. And in the same way, so those lessons I've learned from my career break, which is not a break.
I couldn't agree more with you. Thank you so much for sharing, Khristine. And I know you have done an amazing amount of work through volunteering. Besides your care work, you've done a lot of work with the Society for Canadian Women in Science and Technology. And so I'm curious, could you share with our listeners what transferable skills you have brought to this position and what skills you've learned doing this work that you feel has really helped in your professional work?
So as a young girl back in the Philippines, I had to help with the family business. Our family business was flowers. We had a flower shop, and I had to learn to make sales, like effective sales, and make sure that our customers were satisfied. So also as a dentist, I had to ensure that my patients were satisfied as well with the care that I was giving them. And then as a community-based researcher who had to recruit participants for research, I had to ensure that I was building rapport, very good rapport with the people I was working with and bringing into as participants to the research. So I brought to Squist this skill of building relationships. And this has been successful by like last year, when I was the director for membership, our membership skyrocketed 77%. And I would credit that to my being acutely aware of ensuring that we listen to our members, to their feedback, and then bring that feedback in creating a more robust programming that would satisfy their needs and that would keep them coming back. So yes, if there's one skill that I brought into Squist, it would be that ability to build relationships. And if the question is, and the answer to half of your question about what skill, transferable skill, have I gotten from Squist, I would say it would be leadership. I've been a leader back in the Philippines as well, but at Squist, it was a realization that as a leader, we don't focus on growing our followers, but we focus on growing more leaders. An organization can only be good, it can only be sustainable, can only develop further if there's a great leadership succession strategy. And if that leadership stops within us, the organization dies. But if we focus on making sure that members are given opportunities for leadership roles, and we coach, we mentor, we champion them, it's not just even mentoring them, but making sure that they are brought in and supported at the table, then I think that is the definition of extraordinary leadership. And so that is my realization at the table at Squist, at the leadership table. And I have brought that to my work, to my paid work. So in a recent role, for example, I ensured that the people who were working with me because of the pandemic, I had to make sure that they were mentally, they had were able to cope and had access to mental health support. And and I also have been instrumental in making them aware of opportunities for advancement in the current job within the organization and as well as outside. And and it's just so great when somebody comes back to me, actually even in the recent role, saying thank you, I considering applying for this managerial role because you have let me know that I can actually do it. And that fulfills me.
Thank you so much for sharing this. And, it's like what you said to me, it's like as a manager, the role is really empowering somebody working for you so that one day they might be able to do your role. And now we are looking at the great resignation in North America due to the pandemic. And so what would you have as an advice for employers based on what you just mentioned, talking about mental health, talking about your experience, leading other people? What would you tell them?
Yes, I think this is a great opportunity for employers to unwrap the box where they have placed the employee, remove that open that box, remove that employee from the box, and find out the other facets, the other skills, the other, like what the employee is capable of doing beyond the four size of the box that you've put that employee in. That's one, because I think many employees now are also looking towards opportunities elsewhere where they could have better career progression, right? Better pay. And so, let's even talk about flexible work hours. And if employers could just get that employee out of the box and explore what they can further do, what their potential is, I think they can come up with better offers for the employees to stay on.
You are absolutely right. I feel in order to ensure that people stay with you, I've been reading about stay interviews, which I think is an excellent idea to really learn what is it that somebody appreciates, enjoys about his or her job, and why would they like to stay? Or by contrast, what would make them decide it is time to leave? And I think it is, to some extent, becoming more authentic and maybe honest might be the word, because it doesn't help to pretend. And then the next step is the exit interview. I think as a employer, one is much better off realizing and learning what is it that I, as a manager, could change to ensure that my employee is still going to be there next year, rather than, putting the head in the sand and the next step is the exit interview.
Yeah, I learned something today, the term stay interview.
Yep.
Yeah, there should be really more of that. I agree.
Yes, and I think the other thing that you mentioned, in the past, being a manager had been much more maybe from an authoritarian point of view. I'm the person, the boss, who says this needs to be done. And I feel that the pandemic has really transformed that role to becoming much more of a coach, being more, as you said, focused on ensuring from a mental health perspective, the employee is fine. And as you know, I like flexible work, seeing is the current setting in the current situation with maybe homeschooling, with caregiving, realistic, or does the employee need to, have a compressed work week or things like this? But ultimately, finding individual solutions to ensure that the employee is able to, continue.
Yes, Karen, definitely. We need managers who can empathize, who know how to provide the care. And guess who can do that best? Mothers and children. Transferable skills.
Yeah, I would say any caregiver, I think, day in, day out, has that opportunity to practice every day anew. And I think to self-reflect. That is, I think, one big issue that, honestly, it has made me a better manager. It has made me, raised my self-awareness by dealing with children. Yes. You are the president of SQUIST, Khristine. And so what I would like to understand is there are a lot of employers who are trying to find more female employees for tech jobs. So do you have any advice for them? How can they increase that number?
That's a great question, Karen. We at SQUIST have existed for 40 years now. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary last year, and have a long history of advocating for dismantling the barriers that women and girls in STEM face. There is such an imbalance in the number of women and men in the tech industry. So advice to employers, one is to audit your organizational culture. How supportive are you with your with your employees who happen to be women? There's simple checks. For example, in meetings, who does most of the talking? The men? And are women kept silent? Or if a woman pipes up with a great idea, is it just brushed off and taken on by another man and without acknowledging I know where it came from, but that it was first an idea that was brought up by your woman employee. Also, who does the decision making in the small meetings? Recently, I was in a situation where it was just the men who were really actively talking about and deciding about the programs that we were running without even realizing that the women were not given the chance to pipe in, or ideas were just brushed aside. And then later on, we just noticed that, these ideas were implemented, and because the implementation were done by the men, then they get the credit. So these little things employers should do an organizational audit. And then second is that it just boils down again to the patriarchal notion that child care is the responsibility of women. So two things about this. What kind of support do you give to your male employees so that they are able to fulfill their responsibilities as fathers, as involved fathers? Do you also give them time, or do you expect them to be working all the time because you're a startup that they have to be working 12, 14, 18 hours? Or do you support them so that they can be fathers who are present in the lives of their children as well, so that childcare does not just fall on the shoulders of women? And also, on that note, how do you support women? How do you support mothers in terms of childcare? Are you looking into providing on-site childcare? Oh, that would be a dream. Or do you even has your HR thought of partnering with other organizations that provide childcare near your office? I think that there was one novel idea during the pandemic. I just completely forgot the name of the company. It's based in Vancouver, where a group of women actually offered virtual child minding, and their target were companies. So we just have to come up with this. I just have to remember the name of this company. And so employers could look into those kinds of arrangements for childcare and help provide them to not only the women, but also to the men who are parents. And what I really am pushing for, advocating for ever since Empower.Mom came about, yes, was returnships. Returnships are already common in the United States, but we have very few in Canada. Or do we even have?
There are some, but the majority of them are in the Toronto area. Bay Street and the financial district, there are returnships, for example, and then I'm aware of some smaller companies within the Toronto area that are offering returnships. But you're absolutely right. Thanks to Carol Fishman Cohen's IV launch in the US, there has been many years of returnships, as well as in the UK, thanks to women returners. Yes, so that to me sounds like an excellent project or idea, because I feel often a returnship provides an opportunity for both parties, the employers as well as the potential employees, to get to know each other.
Yeah, so one tech program, one company that I can remember that has offered a tech returnship is Microsoft. I think they called it Leap. It came from Washington State, and then they offered it in Vancouver for a very limited time. I think it was 2017 or 2018, and I never heard about it again. And I guess let's take this opportunity, this post-pandemic, to look into returnships, and Microsoft can spearhead it again. We have like increasing number of tech companies in Vancouver. I can think of Slack, Grammarly. So I challenge you, Cleo, Thinkific, Unbounce. How about thinking about a returnship program? And Empower.Mom can partner with you to have this implemented.
I think that sounds like a wonderful idea. Yes, I mean, the more opportunities there are for returning professionals to, find work that matches their potential, their previous experience, and, education. That would be just wonderful. Yes. Thank you so much, Khristine, for giving us a perspective of the Squist program and how you are helping to support to have more women in tech. Now, what I'm interested in, are you aware of any society for Canadian men in, say, education and care professions? I have not come across them. So I'm, maybe it exists, but I'm curious what needs to be done to have a, increase for men in more care professions to enable a more balanced approach for care work across all genders?
That's a great question. So no, I am not aware of any professional organization that just advocates for men, probably because all the other organizations that are open to men and women already by default are designed mostly for men by men. And so that gives the women impetus to ensure they have, they form their own organizations advocating for women's causes and designed for our needs.
This has been such a fascinating conversation with you, learning more what is already out there for Canadian, professionals who would like to return back to paid work, and what ideas you have to encourage more employers to hire returning professionals. So I want to make sure, is there anything else today that you would like to share with our audience that we have not covered yet?
Yes, Karen, for women going back to work, I would like to say, focus on your why. Before even launching that career search or that job search, focus on your why. Why do you want to work? What is your end goal? Is it money? Is it fulfillment? Is it for your kids? And then based on your why, come up with your plan and your goals and your strategy. And also, I think it's very important, do not compare yourself to others. You are unique and you have a unique journey. And accept the circumstances that you find yourself in. There's no point in crying over spilled milk, because I know some women say, oh, you know what? I just lost 10 years of my life. No, you did not lose 10 years of your life. You actually gained more than what you think you lost. And I think lastly, make that first step. Make that first step. And I just remembered, and finally, do not do it alone. Find another person, find a community. If you can't find a community of support, then build that community of support and bring in other women in your journey.
One question I like to ask my guests is, do you have a particular book that has inspired you or that you would like to share with our audience?
My favorite book, which has been my favorite for a couple of years now, is actually your favorite book. Yeah, Back on the Career Track, by the woman who originally thought of addressing mothers going back to work and relaunching careers, Karen Fishman-Cohen, and she co-wrote it with Vivian Stair-Rabin. And what I got from this is, one, create your own relaunch circle, because finding a job, relaunching careers is not really a one-person activity. You get more success if you have other people cheering you on. And find a relaunch buddy, somebody who you will be accountable to with your plans and who will help you execute your strategy. And as I mentioned again earlier during my interview, if you can't find the community, build that community.
This is such a wonderful ending of our conversation. So now, how can people find you, Khristine?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, Khristine Cariño. And my happy space, non-professional, is on Instagram, also Khristine Cariño. And I tweet some political stuff on Twitter, again, Khristine Cariño.
Thank you so much. And I so appreciated having you today as my guest and learning more about your own journey and how you are supporting professionals who would like to return back to paid work. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, Karen. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the show. We hope you gained valuable insights and new ideas. To keep listening to future episodes, please head over to iTunes or your favorite player and subscribe and give it a rating. We would very much appreciate a review and for you to share it on social media, so more people can start innovating in how they offer employment. Until the next time, goodbye!